ahead, Sundar.
Yes, sir, please.
We start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very sorry, I'm used to all the time evening. Napina made me do it in the morning. Very good morning to each one of you. It's indeed a pleasure to welcome you to another edition of our MMA online webinar. As you all aware, since the time lockdown was declared on 25th of March, we have been having continuous programs for the members. I just to keep them engaged on various activities so that they keep themselves mentally and physically enriching, so that how physically you can say online, we have been taking them live yoga programs every morning. Thereafter, listen, Shankar, you have to unmute and speak. Okay, thank you. Okay, and we start with the yoga program. Thereafter, we give them quizzing every morning to then 11 o'clock in the lecture. Then we share with them number of articles. In the afternoon, we do series of workshops from certificate course from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Then evening 6 o'clock, we do lots of event by high-profile speakers. So we got excellent feedback, and we're really happy to have kept the members engaged. And there's so much of thought-provoking issues which are relevant, not relevant to COVID, also been shared. Now, why I started 3-4 minutes before is I want to just quietly remind our members. Some of them miss their inbox and they keep telling me telephone call message to MMA that they're not getting the message from the major events. I thought quickly tell you only 2-3 events which we are going to do it till 30th May, though we have programmed finalized till 30th of June. Now what we have, the next event, the major event happening is on the 26th of this month, 26th of this month at 6 o'clock in the evening. PM's economic package different stroke is under the magnifying glass, where we have Mr. Narayanan, former finance secretary and advisor to Prime Minister Vajpayee, is going to be talking. He's going to be in conversation with Srinivasan Sini, probably known as the editor of India Business Line. On 27th morning, we have a talk on the project management, which we thought is very, very different today. Project management, which has really lost so many of the time thing and lost due to various difficult times. And we have got one of the international speaker, Manu Vora from Chicago, is going to be talking to us. This we are doing mainly for a lot of management students, and it's also open to all members. But this is happening at 9 o'clock, keeping in time the USA time. It's happening Indian Standard Time at 9 on 27. The 29th, we have politics under the next gen leaders. We are also bringing in, COVID has brought in a lot of issues related to politics. Is how the politics is going to change, and how the next generation of leaders in politics is going to align themselves for various responsibility which is happening, and what is impeding them from growth, and what issues they have in terms of politics. We have 3 outstanding politicians. We have Tejasvi Surya from BJP member of parliament from Karnataka. Then we've got young Kumaramangalam from he's a Tamil Nadu president, the state president of Congress. He's going to be there. We have member of parliament Parameshivam. He is the first time member of local MLA from ADMK. He is a doctor. He's also postgraduate degree in MD. And Priya, she's a Supreme Court advocate. She'll be moderating this. On 3rd of May, again, an high-profile event, COVID-19 and the electoral reforms, where former Chief Election Commissioner T.S. Krishnamurthy will be talking to us. And we also have a lot of ideas. He's the one who really introduced a lot of innovative methods, including the voting system of which is so popular today, was introduced by Mr. C.S. Krishnamurthy. We also finalized programs for the entire June. We won't be taking the time what is there allotted today. We'll keep sharing you as the time pass. Now, when I met first Jude, when he visited MMA, so that's the time I understood, you are so passionate about the brand as a whole and different issues with the brand. That's the time we discussed and decided we'll do a conclave every quarter or every 2 months in MMA in Chennai. So we'll bring in number of outstanding personalities to come and speak. But unfortunately, COVID prevented that from not meeting in Chennai, but it couldn't prevent us from going online and bringing some of the outstanding speakers to share their insight. So that's why the brand value management series got conceptualized with the support of Jude and Napina from that organization. Actually, what we want to do is the shareholders value shifted from the balance sheet. We keep talking about that, everybody knows about. At the moment, the question is, will the brand be one to bring us back safe to the show? Now, we are going to bring in outstanding thought leaders. One such leader is going to be talking to you just a while from now. And what we are going to ask few questions from them is how the brand is how it changes the value of businesses as a brand, and how brands help the businesses to navigate in difficult times, and what advice you give to the participant in managing a brand value. The number of questions, we have got 2 outstanding speakers who will be talking to us today. And just to tell you, the format of the event today is While I might request my President MMA to give the introductory remark, thereafter Mr. Jude, Ramesh Jude will be sharing the insight and also giving the team address to set the context, also tell why we are doing this. Thereafter, we have got a chief guest today for the morning. I'll introduce him a little later. My dear friend for a couple of years, Mr. Suresh Narayan will be delivering the inaugural address. I think he's going to set the tone for the future series to come. Now, and if you have any questions, you can please put in the chat mode. All the viewers watching this program live on YouTube, webinar, and also Facebook, please, there's a number going on your screen. You can send you a WhatsApp or message and a question to go. And let me have the privilege of now introducing Mr. Ram Venkatramani. Ram Venkatramani is the Managing Director of IP Rings Limited. He is a leading manufacturer specialist coated piston rings and a third generation family member, served on the board of $24 billion amalgamation group. Ram is also served on as a president of ACMA and is also now the president of Madras Management Association. May I request Ram to please deliver the welcome and introductory remarks, please. Over to Ram. Mr. Ram?
Yeah. Okay, I've got that. Yeah. So thank you, Vijay Kumar. It's indeed my honor to deliver the formal welcome address for this online seminar on the theme Brand Value Management. I'm delighted to welcome the large number of participants who've joined us at this MMA EQUITOR Brand Value Seminar being organized with the support of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, or CAS, as we refer to them. It's my privilege, sir, to welcome Mr. Suresh Narayanan, Chairman and Managing Director, Nestle India, who's joined us live from New Delhi. Thank you, sir. Great to have you with us. Look forward to hearing your thought-provoking inaugural address. I also welcome Mr. Ramesh Jude Thomas, President and Chief Knowledge Officer, Equity Value Advisory. I think as Group Captain had mentioned, the EQUITOR Value Advisory are our knowledge partners for this event, and we are delighted to join them in presenting a series of events on brand value management over the next few months. I would also like to welcome the members of the Madras Management Association from all over Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, viewers from all over the world. I think there are a large number of guests from other organizations, and I would like to take this opportunity to brief you all a little bit about MMA. As you're aware, we are probably the largest management association in the country. And thanks to the tireless efforts of our past president, as well as our secretariat, led by the dynamic Group Captain Vijay Kumar, we've been adjudged the best management association in the country for the last 10 years in a row. We've made a phenomenal contribution in propagating management movement among the corporate members, students, and the public at large. MMA, we've been in existence for the last 60 years. We have over 7,000 members, sir. Corporate houses, industries, professionals, academics, executives, etc. And the Secretariat does a phenomenal job. They conduct almost 750 programs per year. These include seminars for top management, and we are able to attract almost 45,000 people to our programs. So that speaks volumes about the quality of programs that are being conducted by MMA. We are going through challenging times, and I must take this opportunity to congratulate the Secretariat, because literally from March 23rd, I think they've been on the ball and they've been arranging online programs. I think Group Captain referred to it in his opening remarks. They've arranged a whole huge number of programs during this lockdown period. They've had fantastic attendance and from across the spectrum, from large corporate houses, executives, and a whole bunch of management students have taken this opportunity to attend the programs being conducted by MMA. So in today's event on the theme Brand Value Management, it's timely and apt, considering the prevailing sentiment, state of the economy, and the uncertainty amongst all of us professionals and entrepreneurs. Branding is absolutely critical to business, needless to say. It's how a company gets recognition and becomes known to the consumers for what it actually stands for. Building a brand and creating a brand takes decades of relentless effort. But once the brand is built, maintaining the value of that brand demands double that effort, I suppose. Mr. Suresh Narayanan has had phenomenal experience in brand management. He has also another absolutely unenviable experience of resurrecting a brand, one that was facing an existential crisis, even one might say, and that was Maggie and the story behind that. So we are all eagerly looking forward to your views, sir. Thank you once again for sparing your valuable time. And I would like to finally thank EQUITOR and CAS for joining MMA this morning, and take this opportunity to welcome my colleagues from the managing committee, members of MMA, distinguished invitees, management students, student members, and viewers from across the globe watching this program. Wish you all a great morning, and I'm sure we're going to have fun over the next few hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ram, for your introductory remarks. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Ramesh Jude Thomas to deliver the theme address. Before I request him to deliver theme, let me briefly introduce him to the August audience. Ramesh Jude Thomas is the President and Chief Knowledge Officer of EQUITOR Value Advisory Limited and erstwhile Indian partner for Interbrand. RJT is popularly known to his colleagues and friends. He is credited with introducing brand valuation as a strategic business tool to Indian industry. He led Indian first known strategic brand valuation for Titan Industries Limited, immediately followed by 17 companies in the Tata Group under the stewardship of EQUITOR, and actually collaborated with the Indian management to deliver little over $4 billion additional enterprise value over the last 6 years. He is invited as a faculty as Insure in Paris, and he's also lectured in leading institutions, including all the Indian Institute of Management, ISBs, SP Jain, a number of leading institutions around the world. He is a prolific writer, he's a TED speaker, having contributed a viewpoint in almost every newspapers, and he currently has 2 columns. One is Blindside, other one is Full Deck, and which is very, very popular among the leaders, both in Business Standard and Business World. He sits on the board of several companies, both profit and not-profit organization. He's an avid marathon runner, and in fact, his recent credit was sub 4-hour finish in the last 6 months. It's indeed creditable. Now, request Mr. Ramesh Jude to deliver the theme address, please.
Thank you so much, Group Captain. Thank you to MMA. Thank you to Mr. Venkatramani. And of course, last but not the least, thank you to Mr. Narayan for delivering this inaugural address. Would you want to put up the
screen, share screen?
Yeah. Napina, you want to share the screen?
You unmute yourself, Napina. Napina, you have to unmute yourself. Can you unmute?
Yes,
please.
Now I've been unmuted. I need access for screen sharing.
Yeah, given access given, Shankar? You got it, no? You tried in the morning?
Yeah, but it says host has disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay, got it now? Shankar Sundar,
Yes,
screen share, access to.
Screen share is enabled, ma'am. Yes,
yeah.
No, it's not enabled.
Just a second, ma'am. Just a second, ma'am. Ma'am, please check now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Done. Thank you.
Sorry, due to security reasons, we put a lot of things in place. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Good morning to everyone listening, everyone watching. It's great to be here, and it's great to kick this off, the inaugural of 8 sessions on brand value management. So my first question is, why are we talking about a crisis today? Is it because we are in the middle of one? Is it because we are all sitting at home and we have some time to spare? Or is it because everyone is doing a webinar on COVID-19 and its consequences? Actually, it's none of the above. We wanted to do this and begin with this because it is a crisis that most of all tests what we are made up of, not what we do every day. In business parlance, crises have a way of testing your asset quality, not as much your P&L. So the question that you always ask in a crisis is, what do you most of all draw on in a crisis? If it is then about assets, it's a great time to ask ourselves what our real assets are, not just philosophically, but in terms of value and performance contribution as well. Over the last 3 decades, there has been a lot of debate about recognizing those assets which have not been captured in the books for a long time. And these primarily are our intellectual property, or IP, and the brand. This series, and indeed this session, would like to deal with the most influential and the largest of our business assets, that is the brand. Can we move? So in the next 20 minutes or so, I want to explore the validity of the brand as an asset, and indeed as an asset of import. I'd like to do this using some basic first principles, maybe a story, and one case. As far as possible, I'm going to stay away from the obvious examples of large businesses and large brands, because I just want to establish the underlying logic without getting lost in big names. Yeah. I'd like to examine this in 3 parts to complete the business validity of this argument. The brand itself, there are 1,000 definitions, the idea of brand value, and of course, finally, the principles of how we can extract the maximum from these assets in business measurable terms, which is what we refer to as brand value management. Maybe we should just start by taking an example from this panel itself. I'll probably also end with the panel, right? Let's do what we typically call a test of absence. Okay. This company called IP Rings, which is represented here on the panel by the MD, Mr. Venkatramani, is a specialist engineering firm, which is almost 30 years old, actually. They make piston rings for engines, very specialized, of interest to very specific and probably limited people. It's not a global name. It's not an FMCG. It's not even a household name, right? Now, if I were to put this hypothetical question to Mr. Venkatramani and indeed to all of you on the panel and outside, what happens if for some reason, God forbid, the firm has to stop using the name IP Rings from tomorrow till further notice? Nothing else changes, but not allowed to use the name IP Rings from tomorrow. Think about it for 5 seconds. I think the screen has switched.
No.
The presentation has gone off.
No, it's there.
I can't see it. Okay. Now, the questions I have are as follows. Will they be able to run business as usual? Will they be able to acquire new customers? Will they be able to raise debt if they wanted to? Will they be able to hire the same quality of talent? In fact, will they be even able to retain their best vendors? So over the last 2 decades, and I think the answers of these questions are pretty obvious. And over the last 2 decades, we have identified actually 34 material ways in which a business could be impaired if it were to lose nothing else but the right to its trademarks, that is, its brand names. Is this an asset characteristic? If we agree, then the next question is an asset of what consequence and indeed of what value? Another way to examine value contribution, can you move to the next slide, would be through the lens of market value. Some of us invest into stocks of companies. Some of us here would actually be investing into entire companies. When you do buy a firm or a stock, you will notice that only 1/4 of the value on the average will be captured in its books, what we typically call price to book value in technical terms. What do you pay the balance 3/4 of the value for? Again, we have found over the years that a large part is for the IP, example, molecules in the case of pharma firms, but the single largest chunk typically is what you pay for the brand. And this is how it is materially valid. To bring this idea to life, I don't want to use a big business example or a big brand. That will take away from the fun. I want to share with you one of two experiences that we've had with senior healthcare professionals, very critical people in today's environment. So a group of specialist surgeons in Dubai reached out to us on the back of an early experience that we had with a heart specialist actually from India. They wanted to set up a super specialty hospital in Dubai with private equity support. But here's the interesting thing. The private equity guys told them, we are going to hold 80% plus of the equity. We're going to bring in the money, and the rest of it will be divided amongst the six of you in terms of sweat equity. Now, they found that intuitively quite strange and quite unfair. It also happened that one of them was an MBA from South Africa. So he's the one who reached out to me and said, hey, does this make sense? So I said, absolutely not. So how did we go about this? The question that we asked ourselves and them and actually assessed is the number of people that were to walk in through those doors for treatment. And the price that we could charge each of them is dependent upon what? And that is the essence or the reflection of value, isn't it? So if the volumes and the revenues and the price per intervention is dependent upon not the equipment, not the buildings, what is it dependent upon? It really is the reputation of these doctors and the capability of these doctors. Even if you look at very large examples back home in India, like Escorts, which was very, very closely associated with one brand name of one doctor, or Manipal Heart Hospital, which is again linked to one individual with one brand name, huge brand name. It's really about the reputation of the professionals that creates value. And therefore, that work enabled these six gentlemen to go back to the private equity partners and look at a totally different deal, which is now history, right? I just took this example because I wanted to move away from corporates as a whole, right? But what are the principles that actually help us to extract value, which is the third part of what I wanted to talk about? How does a brand act the firm and demonstrate that to the board, to the leadership, and to the shareholders? That's value recognition. Of course, I think all of you are familiar with things like the global league tables, which put out the value of the 100 most valuable brands. And they are sizable in number. Today, the number is the top 100 brands are over $2 trillion in value, which is bigger than most GDPs in the world. So value recognition is the first. In value recognition, it's not just a number that's important, but it's also critical to demonstrate what is it that's creating value, or what we technically call the value drivers. Once you have the size of the value and the value drivers, the next principle is really to see if we can make it the arrowhead of business forecasting. Can we create a version 2.0 around it? Can we extract much more value in terms of size and differentiation from this business as a consequence of our largest asset, that is the brand? Okay. So version 2.0. Can you look at a new future through the lens of your brand as your principal asset? And the third principle is you need an organization that actually has to drive it, albeit through the brand, anchored to the brand and its values, but you need an entire organization. So how do you hire? Do you hire through the lens of the brand and its drivers? What kind of new products do you have? Do you innovate through the lens of the value drivers? What kind of geographies do you go to? What kind of partnerships do you build? What do you stay out of? Equally important. Can the brand then be that pivotal point around which you create an organization that will create value, that will create growth, that will create disruption? I want to now finally share one example of something that I think a lot of people have heard about. The last time when I was with MMA, Sundar had shared this, but I think it's worth sharing because it is a brand, it's a business that was rebuilt completely out of a crisis. Yeah, company everybody knows. At that point of time, it was about 770 crores in terms of turnover. It had a 5:1 debt equity ratio. It had 184 crore hole in the balance sheet. But what was very critical is 2/3, 62% in fact, of the value of that enterprise was brand value, right? More importantly, what was discovered was that the value of the brand was not in watchmaking, was not in jewelry, but was in design, very high quality retaining, and absolutely world-class customer experience. So if the word Titan meant these three things, what could you look at in terms of a future of the firm? One that takes it out of its current situation, more importantly, creating much more value on the other side, right? Putting a number of, initiatives into place, they were able to look at a version 2.0 of themselves. They were able to come out of the red, but more importantly, they were able to create a much larger future for themselves, a very different future. And all of you know that their retail capability got transited into Helios as a separate brand. Their three drivers then found form in a business like prescription eyewear. And what was supposed to become a 1,700 crore business in 5 years became a 5,000 crore business. And they actually hit 4,900 crores out of that. Today, as we all know, this business is the second most valuable business in the group, more valuable than Tata Steel and even Tata Motors today, just below TCS. And that's the kind of value that they were able to create over so many years, essentially by understanding that their lead asset is the brand, that it has very specific drivers. And those drivers can give us a very, very near future, not by pulling it out of the blue sky, but by really understanding who we are and what it's made up of. It was in a crisis. It was in a very, very big crisis that they actually rebuilt this business and saw much more value on the other side of the crisis. Just to give you a sense of what happened, that's what it looks like. In fact, if you had put 1 lakh of rupees at that point of time in Titan, you would have been sitting at about 2.7 or 2.8 crores today, I think. That's the kind of value that they were able to extract by recognizing in a crisis that their brand is their single largest and their most influential asset. Right. I would like to hand over, but not without my favorite, one of my favorite crisis examples. Mr. Venkatramani had referred to it. And if there is somebody who combines the idea of value creation, crisis, brand, and leadership, which is a very, very important aspect, which I think I missed in the last example. A lot of it has to do with good leadership that gets a lot of people around the table, gets them to focus, lifts their self-worth, and makes them believe that you can drive a very different future in a crisis through a brand. To talk to us about it, Mr. Suresh Venkatramani, Mr. Suresh Narayanan for you. Sorry.
Thank you, Jude, for setting the context. Before I request, before I request Mr. Suresh Narayanan, let me have the privilege of introducing him for the benefit of the audience. Mr. Suresh Narayanan is the Chairman and Managing Director of Nestle India Limited, and Suresh Narayanan has over 35 years of experience in the FMCG industry and has held senior management and top leadership roles in leading global companies. He's also on the board of directors of Nestle India Limited. From the 1st of August 2015, Narayanan was Chairman and CEO of Nestle Philippines prior to joining Nestle in 2015. Narayanan was also Managing Director of Nestle Singapore Limited, and he was awarded the Medal of Commendation by the Government of Singapore in 2010 for the experience for excellence in employee relationship during his tenure in Singapore. Narayanan also joined Nestle India in 1999 and as Executive Vice President for Sales in India, where he specialized in major structural and strategic changes in sales, customer management, and set the chill dairy businesses. Narayanan began his career as a management trainee with Hindustan Unilever. Most of the leaders today in India start their career with Hindustan Unilever, where he held numerous positions in increasing responsibility, sales, marketing, general management, and he has also worked with Colgate India Palmolive prior to joining Nestle. Narayanan holds a master's degree in economics from Delhi School of Economics and a number of other management degrees from various other institutions. And Suresh has also been honored by the Forbes India Leadership Award in 2017 as the best CEO of a multinational category. He was also recognized among the most valuable CEO in 2019 by the Business World and also awarded the best CEO of FMCG in 2019 by the Business Today. Under the leadership in 2019, Nestle India won the best governed company in 2018 by the Asian Center for Corporate Governance and Sustainability. Gentlemen, we are indeed privileged and honored to have Mr. Suresh Narayanan, my old friend of more than 20 years. We were in touch him. One thing I want to share, I met him 20 years back. he has not changed since then, actually. And he's continued to be same Suresh Narayan. Whenever I talk to him, move with him, that one quality which makes him really dear to a large number of his followers and friends. And let me now present to you Suresh Narayan to inaugurate and deliver the inaugural letters. Over to you, Mr. Suresh. You have to unmute yourself, Suresh.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Vijay Kumar, for your very kind words. Thank you, Mr. Venkatramani, the president of the Madras Management Association, for having given me the opportunity to come and talk to the members and also to the larger audience who are participating today. I think it has been very well said by Ramesh in the earlier session that if there is one piece of your organization that can get you through a difficult crisis, it is your brand. And I think it is very appropriate that we have this topic, that your brand is your best business continuity plan in a crisis. Now, let me just add in my own experience about crises. And I've had the privilege or the misfortune, as you look at it, for handling numerous crises, whether it was the Lehman meltdown in 2008 in Singapore, whether it is the 5 years of the Arab Spring in Egypt, Libya, and Sudan, where I worked with the company, a short peace time in Philippines, and then followed by 5 years of pretty rigorous work in India, starting with the Maggie crisis that we had to face as a company. One of the things, ladies and gentlemen, about a crisis is that crisis doesn't come with a calling card. Many of us introduce ourselves with calling cards. Unfortunately, a crisis doesn't come and tell you, hey, Mr. Suresh, I am a crisis at your door, and do something about it. A crisis creeps in. A crisis falls on you, a crisis grows on you, a crisis is inherent in you. But the fact is that the crisis then blows up and then creates consequences. If you look at it today, the pandemic that is facing us is not a crisis that we invited to us. It came. It started in China, and then it found its way into different parts of the world. And lo and behold, we find ourselves doing all the lockdown procedures and living a life and working a life that is very different from what we dreamt of and what we thought even in January, February of this year. So you can see how life can be upended by crisis. But as Ramesh told you very rightly, I think every crisis is also an opportunity. I think the Chinese have a term for it, that in crisis they see an opportunity. And that's really what I would like to talk to you about today. So I want to leave you with 5 core messages and probably 5 principles that I have learned in my years of being in the consumer goods sector, and for almost over 20 years, having been in responsible positions in the world's largest consumer goods company, which is Nestle. So the 5 lessons that I would really like to leave you with, lesson number 1 is brand is your most robust intangible, if you look at it as an intangible, but in a crisis, it is the most tangible. You get defined in terms of operating, navigating, and coming out of a crisis by the strength of the brand. Now, I speak from a consumer goods perspective. Mr. Venkatramani, who's the president of MMA, speaks from a different perspective, from an engineering goods perspective. Ramesh talked about a fantastic brand for whom I have got the highest respect, Titan, which is also in a sense a consumer durable, but it is not a consumer good in the essence of being a fast-moving consumer good. But the fact of the matter is that all examples will indicate to you that if the brand is strong and robust, then it helps you come out of a crisis, and it is your most tangible weapon against a crisis. Number 2, the truth is brand defines the heart and soul of your business. Brand is not just your calling card. Brand is the essence of who you are, defines your purpose, defines your values, defines your outcomes, and defines your passion. So nurture your brand in this manner of it being a member of your family, and don't treat it as somebody who's coming outside the family and trying to serve you as best as the brand can. So a brand defines the heart and soul of your business. Truth number 3, you do have a robust set of brand principles which can help you bail you out during a crisis. So it is not that managing a brand or managing a business is a matter of accident. There are principles, and there are well set principles, and people like Ramesh also help propagate those principles, which has come out of experience, come out of enormous researching into organizations as to why brands should succeed. And there are principles that make brands succeed. Lesson number 4, a brand has to be nurtured in good times. Watering in a crisis does not help. So if you have neglected your brand, if you have neglected its equity, if you have neglected nurturing it, if you have neglected the principles that it demands, if you have not interfaced in the manner in the value chain in which the brand is said to be, I'm afraid in a crisis, the brand is not going to be off to you. If you have not nurtured, then I'm afraid it is a little bit like having little education and expecting your children or your neighbor's children to become somebody big in life. They will rise only in as much as you are able to give them the nourishment of nutrition and also the inspiration of education. So therefore, a brand has to be nurtured in good times, and then it helps you in the not so good times. Principle number 5 is probably the most important, that brand defines the purpose, the values, and the partnerships of your organization. Any organization fundamentally is built on 3 foundations. It's built on the foundation of purpose. It is nurtured and inspired by the values, and also it is put into action, it is operationalized by the partnerships. Everything else that you have, all your factories and all your branch offices and all the glitz and glamour of the wonderful entrances that you have and the great decor that your office carries is worth nothing, They can burn and you can be even stronger and even better if you have purpose, values, and partnerships in your organizations. And this will define the behaviors and response mechanisms of your organization. So the 5 key lessons that I would like to give. Number 1 is brand is your most robust, intangible, but in the crisis, the most tangible. Number 2, brand defines the heart and soul of your business. Number 3, a robust set of brand principles can help you bail out during a crisis. Number 4, brand has to be nurtured in good times. Watering in a crisis does not help. And number 5, brand defines the purpose, values, partnerships, the behaviors, and the response mechanisms of your organization. Now let me come to Nestle, which is the example that is closest to my heart, and it is an organization that I have tried to serve to the best of my capabilities. Nestle is a very old company. It was set up in 1866 by a German immigrant to Switzerland by the name of Heinrich Nestle. But he adapted himself to the context of the French-speaking part of Switzerland that he came to. And Heinrich became Henri. So he was then called Henri Nestle, a serial entrepreneur who failed in numerous ventures. He had a gaslighting business. He had a paraffin wax business. He tried to make some chemicals. He even applied in those days the village now, which is a town, which is our head office, a place called Vevey, which is close to Lausanne, was a village. And in order to pave the road, and in order to provide for gas lighting, he put in a contract, and he didn't get that contract. But he was a good-hearted man. He was a trained pharmacist. And in those days, 19th century Switzerland was, surprise, surprise, a poor country. So they had a lot of infant mortality. So number of children were dying. But Henri Nestlé was a kind-hearted man. So he said, I must put my knowledge to use and save the life of a neighbor's child by the name of Werner. So he put up this combination of wheat flour, of milk, of vitamins, minerals, sugar, put it all together, put a bit of water to it, mixed it, and gave it to little Werner. Werner survived. So Werner's mother said, why don't you give it to the other neighbors' children who are also starving? He gave it to those children. They all survived. Till the head of the village told him, he said, look, Henri, you can't survive like this because you are trying to save children, but you will not be able to survive if you don't make this into a business. So reluctantly, Henri Nestlé started the business, but he called it farine lactée, which is French for wheat flour and milk. And he put the name Nestlé to it because he said, whatever I produce will have my personal guarantee to it. The food quality and safety of this product. So if it sells cans, the 100 customers can come and ask me, Nestlé, Henri, what have you done about it? And therefore, I think this set off the journey 154 years ago. Henri Nestlé's quest began with a social cause, saving the life of a child. The product that he produced, farine lactée, still exists, and some of you might have given it to your children. It's called Cerelac. Cerelac was the first product that the company put out 154 years ago. Since then, the company has grown through a lot of its own organic brands and through acquisitions. Today, we tip the scales at over $90 billion of sales. We are the largest consumer goods company in the world, represented in about 200 countries, employ almost 300,000 people. And what is more, we nurture 2,000 global and regional brands. So the portfolio of the company is such that my successor and his successor and successors after that can continue to launch brands of Nestlé. So the challenge for Nestlé is not what to launch, but when to launch. So that is a different challenge from many other organizations. Many of the brands that we have had also began with a social purpose. KitKat. KitKat was a brand that was introduced to factory workers in UK in the 19th century. And what was required was a quick energy product between breaks. Between the break of the shifts that they took, they needed a chocolate or they needed a form of energy. So what was designed was a 2-finger and a 3-finger KitKat, which could fit into the back pocket of the overalls of a factory worker. And the line is still being used. Have a break, have a KitKat. It began with a factory break, but now, of course, we have so many other breaks in life. Our brand Nescafe was made as a result of a crisis. The crisis was that in Brazil, there was an excess coffee crop. The Brazilian government did not know what to do with this coffee. So they requested Nestlé at that time and requested them to do something about it because they were a food company. So Nestlé put its scientists to work, and in a couple of months' time, they were able to crack the first prototype of what became instant coffee, and that instant coffee was Nescafe. That Nescafe went on to dominate the global markets because of American troops who were traveling all across the world during the Second World War. And as a result of the American soldiers' habit of drinking Nescafe, the world got to drink Nescafe. So Nescafe also began in a crisis. Milo, again, a brand that was founded in Australia, came out of a crisis because Australia was having serious issues in terms of children getting adequate nutrition. And again, a request was made that can you as a company do something about it? So almost 80 years ago, Milo which is our energy drink, was born. So you see that every crisis has given rise to an opportunity. And those of us who are able to capitalize on that opportunity, to see virtue in that opportunity, create a brand. And those brands last. KitKat is a 90-year-old brand. Nescafe is also 80 plus. Milo is also 80 plus. The company is 100 years old. In India, we are 108 years old. So therefore, you can see that longevity comes when you have strong genes, firm foundations, and principles of nurturing that you do not ever violate in all the history that you go through. So if I were to look at the 5 key principles that have helped the company to do what it has done. Number 1 is connect. I call it the 5 C's. The first principle is connect. Connect across the value chain. We talked about, and Ramesh was very kind in his comments about brand Maggi. Why did we and why were we able to bring Maggi from the ICU, literally from death, right? It was a brand that was dead for 5 months and then came back, and within 2 months, it became market leader once again. And ever since then, we haven't looked back. And today, in the pandemic, it is the most sought after brand because it is a quick form of having a snack or a quick form of assuaging hunger. The reason why it happened is because of the ecosystem that the brand has. Maggi as a brand is a brand that is upwards of 2,000 crores in terms of value, but it has about 400,000 wheat farmers that produce the wheat that goes to the wheat flour that makes Maggi. We have about a couple of thousand spice farmers. We have a couple of thousand suppliers. We have about 1,800 distributors. We have 4.5 million outlets. We have many thousand outlets. You know, Maggi started the food retailing revolution in this country. It is not Domino's and KFC's and McDonald's. In the early 80s, when Maggi came, you had the Maggi being made in dhabas and Maggi being made in small little shacks and small little outlets outside cinema theaters, outside bus stations, outside railway stations, inside colleges, right? And they all gave a source of living for people. So the ecosystem was much larger. Today in the pandemic, we reach out to that ecosystem. Today, the reason why we are able to resurrect this brand from a difficult situation is because it has stood for happy moments in the lives of people. So brand trust and brand love are essentials. And Maggi has always had happy moments with people. You all have fond memories of the brand, whether in school or in college or in the cafeteria or whenever, right, on holidays. It is a brand that is available from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, right, and literally from Dwarka to Meghalaya, right? You'll find it, whether you find anything else or not. Maggi and tea will always be found, and that's something that is ubiquitous. But it has come about because of the core principle of connecting across the value chain with respect, with trust, and with transparency. During the Maggi crisis, one of the pledges that I had taken, and I always thank the Lord for having given me the strength to be able to not forsake it, was no job was lost. Not a single employee lost his job during the Maggi crisis. That was the only pledge I had. I said, it is not just a livelihood. It is a mark of self-respect. For a person to lose a job is like losing your self-respect. And I have no business as a business entity to be sacrificing the very foundations that makes my business strong. So connect is extremely important. Number 2, comply. Nestle has global expertise. We have 31 R&D centers. In the last 20 years, Nestle has spent more than $20 to $35 billion in R&D. Every year, we spend about $1.5 billion in R&D across 31 R&D centers with 4,000 employees who work in the R&D centers. What do? They convert science into nutrition. They use technology to leverage nutrition. And at this time, during the pandemic, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we are reaching out to the government to help educate food processing industries on safety, social distancing, hygiene practices, good manufacturing practices. We've had our people, assurance people take sessions at various to educate. We have a network of almost 5,000 to 10,000 suppliers. Many of them are MSMEs. One of the principles that I have put forward to my team, and I'm truly grateful that they live by it, I said, don't allow even a single MSME to go belly up. This is the time when we have to stand by them because they have stood by us in all these years. So therefore, we reach out to them. We help them get permission. We help start manufacturing. We with advance payments. We help them with orders. We say we are privileged to own a brand that is strong. I think we must reach out with that privilege to be able to help people in these difficult times. So compliance is a very, very important part of the brand. If you are ethical, if you are honest, if your moral compass is due north, you have nothing to fear, my friends. It's only when when duplicity, when deception, and when dissonance comes to you, that you have a business model that starts to shake. If a model is completely based on a fictitious valuation that somebody is doing of you, you will not be able to stand on your feet. But if your brand is based on connections and on compliance and on ensuring that it genuinely gives value somewhere to someone, then you have every reason to stand and come out of a crisis. Third, create. The whole process that we have followed as a company at this time is not only to create properties around our brands, but also to nurture them. We have a property, for example, called Ask Nestle. This is one of the biggest platforms that we have in the country, and probably I can say this boastfully, that is probably the only true nutrition site where you get information on nutrition, because just like fake news, we have fake news in nutrition as well. So this site is today being leveraged for information to mothers on good nutrition for children, on growing habits, on common nutrition practices, on recipes. Mothers are now seeking, for example, different recipes, right? Because they have to keep the kids engaged at home and also to give them nutritious food. So Ask Nestle is leveraged this significantly, and we have managed to get more than 1.1, 1.2 million contacts in a matter of days. This took us last year almost 7 to 8 months. So what we took 7 to 8 months, we are now doing it in days. Maggi.in is now reaching out to consumers because they are cooking at home. So they need different ideas. Once again, this is like a helpline, helping you with not one or two, but hundreds of recipes, not all related to Maggi. So it is not that Maggi has to be the centerpiece of all of this, but it is a service to a cause that you provide, which is extremely important. Today, I'm very proud that as a result of all of this, my core suppliers, they survive, they thrive. I work with 100,000 farmers, not one or two, 100,000 farmers in Punjab and Haryana. Since the crisis, every single day, every drop of milk has been collected by Nestle and processed, and they have been paid on time. Values, trustworthiness, principles only are put to test in a crisis. When everything is good, the birds are flying, the parrots look green, the world looks terrific. When the chips are down is when the men stand up. It's when the women stand up. It's when your purpose and your values speak. So this is the moment when you should make that happen. The fourth one, consistency. You need to be consistent. You can't suddenly become from a zero to a hero, or you should not decimate yourself from a hero to a zero through behaviors that are seen to be completely and totally opportunistic. This is not the time for opportunistic brands. This is the time for compassionate brands. You will make your money. You will make your profits. The value chain will carry on. Mr. Ramesh will do a valuation of your brand and he'll find greater value add because of ethical, honest, sincere, transparent, and trustworthy behavior than because of duplicity, because of deception, or because of dissonance. In that, you lose a lot more. Don't worry about a few thousand that you lose today. You will make many million tomorrow. And that is if you are consistent. And the last principle is to be competitive. I think you are in business to be competitive. You are in business because an essential dimension is what differentiates you from the others. A crisis is the time when you must ask the question, am I differentiated or am I just like everybody else? If you are just like everybody else, you will divide the cake 10 pieces amongst 10 people. If you are differentiated, you will divide the cake 10 pieces, but 6 pieces you will get, and 4 pieces will be divided amongst the other players. What is the game that you want to play? A competitive game, or you want to play a fair average game? This is the time to ask those questions. So the 5 principles that I've enunciated are connections across the value chain, compliance, sharing of knowledge, building the foundations, creation, creating new content. We are today a digital company. We are no longer a company that's based on press and television and those kind of things. I'm a millennial organization. 80% of Nestle India are millennials. So when I retire, the average age will fall by 5 years because there are much younger people in the company. They are coming up with new ideas. They're coming up with new ways of doing things. This is the time for you to empower your teams. I keep telling my team, my only role is to do 2 things. Number 1, tell you the purpose. And number 2, empower you and get out of the way. If I can do that successfully, I think we will have a successful organization going forward. So connection, compliance, creation, consistency, and being competitive. I think these are the 5 C's, or the 5 essential principles, which was part of the 3rd lesson that I gave. A robust set of brand principles can help bail you out during a crisis. So with this, I want to end, but I want to take this opportunity to wish each one of you the very best as you navigate yourselves, your families, and your businesses out of this crisis. My only advice to you as a senior leader is first to manage yourself. First, manage yourself. The problem is we start managing others by being confused and by being incoherent. It doesn't help. A leader has to be crystal clear and coherent. Ask Group Captain Vijay Kumar, an ex-Air Force man, as to what crisis and what leadership means when you are up against in a war. This is a war that you're fighting. But I wish you all the very best in this. I do hope that you're all safe, that you're all secure, and I extend to you my very best wishes in your own business. At this time, the 6th C that I would add to the 5 C's is compassion. Be compassionate. This is the time to give. This is not the time to take. More you give, the more you will get. That is what all our religions have told us, and that is what I hope all of you also follow. So thank you all very much for listening to me, and over to you now, Vijay Kumar, for the rest.
Thank you, Suresh. It's been always been fascinating to hear you, and excellent insight, excellent thoughts, which will set the tone for, I think Judy will also agree with me, that the future series to come. And you started with the 5 C's. Before I hand over, I'll tell all the viewers, please put your question in chat box. Other things I'll be complain. A lot of questions have come. Napina will shortly put the questions to you, and we have got another 15-20 minutes. We can take as many questions as possible. And your 6 C's, great. I think we all started with the first C, the Corona. I think the first Corona has set so many C's for us. I think we are. I think the right time we have put those C's. Now let me request Napina. Napina currently is an engagement director with EQUITOR, and she's also spent over a decade with them. And she also is a very successful entrepreneur before joining. And she's one who is very passionate about, I've been dealing with her and coordinating with things, and she's very passionate about what she does it. Now she has kindly agreed to moderate the Q&A. Over to you, Napina. Please take it over. All the questions are there in the chat box for you, which my guys will keep updating them. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Group Captain. Thank you, Mr. Narayanan. That was a masterclass in brand value management. I think as much as one could have learned in 30 minutes, we did. And I think that was a very good revision, even for us practitioners, because when you're so close to the work that you do, you sometimes lose the perspective of things like communication and compliance. We keep talking about it, but you exemplified it. Thank you for that. I have a lot of questions. I have questions here in the chat box. I also have some other questions. Let me start with the first one that I have here, which seems to suggest, okay, so this person is asking about the difference between marketing and branding. And the question seems to be about the role of marketing in managing a brand. I think the question stems from the fact that we have been talking about brands as business assets, and therefore the entire language is very different from one that traditional marketeers are used to. So the first question has to do with what is the role of marketing in managing a brand going forward? And does the marketing person have to evolve into another profile in order to be able to manage brands in the future? Mr. Narayanan?
Thank you, Napina. I think, look, I would really like to give a very short answer to it and really leave the floor to Ramesh, because he has greater experience in kind of navigating this field in all humility. To me, you see, I mean, we are unfortunately putting a lot of nomenclatures and phrases to it: marketing, branding, custodial management, equity management. I think sometimes we confuse ourselves. The fact of the matter is that you have what is your brand? Brand is like you yourself. It's like a human being. You're a personality. What is your personality? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are the kind of offerings that you have as a human being? If a human being is a brand, then a inanimate object can also become a brand. How do you nurture that brand? That is through the principles that I've defined. What are the kind of connections it has? How does it comply with the environment? What is the competitive proposition that it seeks to offer? What is the kind of core equity that it is seeking to build? With whom, right? All those are the principles of marketing, typically put in the 4 Ps that all of us have been taught in business schools, right? Price, promotion, placement, right? And the product, right? And the 5th P, which I keep telling people that they forget, and that only happens after you spend 35 years in a profession, is passion, right? That is the 5th P. Without passion, there is no brand. And sometimes we forget it. We think that it is only clinical market research that will be able to throw great brands for you. So to me, there is really not much of, there is no point in confusing yourself. You have a proposition, you have to sell it, and that is defined by the principles of marketing. What come and what you build as a result of it is a brand, and that brand over a period of time builds equity, and that equity is what Ramesh captures as value, right? So that's the short answer. Over to you, Ramesh, if you want to add more to it.
We can't hear you.
Unmute you, Ramesh, please. You have to unmute yourself, Ramesh. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Narayanan. I just want to add a slightly different dimension to it while agreeing with all the practitioner's point of view that you've put across. I think the biggest shift we are going to see in the next 10 years is the role of the brand, the presence of the brand in the boardroom. You will see board governance around the brand quite soon. You will have a committee that is going to look at impairment testing as well as value accrual from the brand separately. And therefore, to my mind, the CMO is going to become a very important functionary in the boardroom, reporting to shareholders and reporting to the board about impairment testing and value accrual. The marketing, on the other hand, is all the activities that are going to be orchestrated towards this report. And that's the only difference I can make from a value creation standpoint and a value management standpoint. This is going to happen in a decade.
I have one very interesting question here. Maybe you can start, Ajiti, and then we can have Mr. Narayanan's view. It says how long before insurance companies insure brands. If it's an asset, then it needs to be insured and protected.
Yeah, the same 10 years, we'll see the recognition of it as a brand. I hope IFRS has been a first step in taking us forward in the journey. When it is recognized as an asset, not just as an acquired asset, but as a living asset, and a number is put to it, it is your single largest asset which is going to create value, then insurance cannot be far behind. If you insure factories, if you insure molecules even today, then I don't see how you will not be able to, you will be able to avoid insuring brands.
Mr. Narayanan, do you have a view?
Well, I think, the simple question is, if you look at a Google or a Facebook, and you value these brands, it is not the size of that office and their assets walk in every morning and walk out every evening, right? And the power of Google and Facebook is the power of ideas and the power of leverage. So I agree with Ramesh that sooner or later we will have to start valuing it. And certainly in the post-COVID world, maybe it will be sooner than later.
The next question I have has to do very specifically with the COVID crisis. Do you believe that there is an opportunity to build deeper customer loyalty and enhance brand perception at a time like this?
Well, my own personal perception is definitely yes. What does a consumer or a customer look at? How does a customer look at a company and a brand during a crisis? Number one, are they reliable? Number two, are they trustworthy and transparent? Number three, are they trying to reach out to do their very best? And number four, are they in any manner exploitative, or are they giving me the product or service that I asked for? Now, if these four principles are satisfied by a company, this is the time when the consumer will make the choice between brand X and brand Y, saying, I find here an organization that is respecting me, that is reaching out to me, that is reliable in what he or she offers. Remember the comment that Ramesh made in his presentation. Why do people flock to Titan? The quality of the customer experience. That's why you go back to it, right? Why do great brands get made? It's because of experience, pack after pack, moment after moment, time after time, country after country, right? How have all these global brands been made? They've been made because assiduously they're focused on a few essentials, and they have done this very well time and time again. So I think a crisis gives a unique opportunity. Some of us decide to hunker down and we look at the costs. You see that, which is important. I'm not saying don't look at costs, right? But look at the right kind of costs. Another C, cholesterol, right? Is a bit of that, right? What kind of costs are you looking at cutting out? And what should not be cut is what I call the consumer-facing costs and also the people-facing costs. I think these two are things that you need to retain. Everything else you can jettison. You're not going to have conferences. You're not going to operate from fancy offices. You're not going to travel. You're not going to have great meetings. You're not going to throw bashes for your 50th anniversary or 75th anniversary. All that is fine. But consumer-facing and people-facing costs, if you cut into the bone of the company, and that hurts.
Thank you. I have two questions which are actually conjoined. The first one has to do with can individual integrity be branded? I think the question is, can individuals become a brand? The second question is, can that value be migrated to organizations, especially in promoter-driven organizations?
So
I would leave that first shot on this to Ramesh to take, because he's an expert on this.
Sure.
Okay. I think as far as individuals are concerned, you must have heard the story of the doctors, which I spoke about. That clearly indicates how professionals can be highly valuable as individuals. And it's very difficult, for example, in the case of the doctor itself, to separate quality of intervention from the integrity of the person. And therefore, for good doctors, it's very often the integrity that comes first, because I don't know any better. I have to depend upon him. The second is the example which Mr. Narayan himself took about the foundations of a very, very large company like Nestle. How did it start? It started with the what do you call it, first principles, with the individuality of a person who decided to do something for society more than anything else. And somebody had to tell him, hey, listen, can you do something for yourself? So it was then migrated to an organization which is today in 200 countries and is $90 billion. But it started with what he believed. Of course, it can be migrated. And very often the greatest businesses in the world are basically migrations from personal values to an organization that institutionalized it.
Mr. Narayanan, do you have anything to add?
Well, no, I think Ramesh has said it beautifully. I mean, I think every great organization stems from an individual soul who has been fired by a spirit, and he has done something about it. Great organizations are always built on that, and cultures are formed around it. You see, the beauty is that culture of nurturing, that culture of quality. One of the things Nestle is very proud of is its quality and safety. Even worst crisis we had, you couldn't question us on quality and safety. Everything else you can keep throwing up in the air. And I think corporate cultures are formed and value systems are formed by what the personalities or the founders do. And that's the reason why many great Indian companies, whether you look at what Mr. Venkatramani is doing, the Amalgamations Group, or if you look at Tata's, for example. I mean, these are classic examples of companies that have been set on rock solid ethical foundations, and all starting from the founder.
Individuals.
So the founder has set it, and then everybody has.
Thank you. The next question I have has to do with managing corporate brands and product brands inside the same organization. Somebody like you, Mr. Narayanan, does both. You manage a corporate brand for Nestle and 2,000 brands under it. How do you make sure that there is no conflict in what you spoke about earlier, which is brand purpose and vision for the brand?
I think the first thing that we do is, yes, we have the corporate brand Nestle, which is a very powerful brand in itself. And also we got the number of other brands like KitKat and Nescafe and Munch and Maggi and all that. I think what we do is we have very clear guidelines for what will be called a Nestle and what will not be called a Nestle. So brands in the space of nutrition, or brands in the space of health science, or brands in the space of dairy, by and large, will carry the Nestle moniker to it, which means that it will be sold as Nestle as a major brand, because these are all the brands that we believe, or the categories we believe, that is also closely linked with what the founder stood for, or what that name Nestle stands for globally. Then there are other brands like a Maggi, for example, will be all in the food centric area. So it is hardly unlikely that I will launch a UHT milk under the name of Maggi, right? It's highly unlikely, because Maggi stands for culinary food solutions, right? KitKat talks about affordable treats, right? In the sweet area. So it's hardly likely that there will be a KitKat noodle tomorrow coming, right? So I think there are principles that are very clearly defined in terms of product types, in terms of consumer targets, in terms of equity that we're seeking to build, in terms of the degree of stretch that we can give to the brand, and on these principles, and also the opportunity that we see in each of this. And basis these principles, there are fairly well-defined guardrails. And I think it's important, otherwise everybody will start calling everything the way in my company. There's also, for example, combining Nestle with something else, right? It is a corporate global decision. So Nescafe was coffee from Nestle that came, right? But suppose there was a Nestea. Suppose I launch a kanji, right? I can't call it Neskanji, right? There will be real guidelines saying, sorry, you can go up to this point. Beyond this point, you You can't go. So I think well-defined principles and policies on brands. That's what really makes a difference.
Thank you.
Can I just add something to it?
Sure, please.
I will take not more than 60 seconds. In general, I think there are three things that we need to keep in mind. One is that when you have a big corporate brand, for example, the largest one in the country is Tata, okay? There are defined set of values for that brand, which defines it. And they appeal to a particular set of stakeholders like bankers, like employees, etc. There's a second set, which is to do completely and totally with the individual product brands, which could be a Taj, which could be a Titan, etc. But the most important thing is the third, to my mind. You have to make sure that the product brand and its activities or individual businesses do not conflict the values of the corporate brand. And that to me is the biggest risk that companies face. In the pursuit of profit or furthering the positioning of an individual product brand, can I afford to dilute or conflict some of the corporate values? That could be disaster.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think when Mr. Narayanan was talking about quality and safety, first of all, I think that's what he meant. So, yeah, at a corporate level, you've defined that quality and safety is mandatory. And therefore, regardless of which brand you intend to promote, you cannot compromise on these two values. Is that what you're saying, Ajit?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. The next question I have, and I probably will have to wind up after this. I can take one more question from the chat room if someone has a question, but otherwise this is the last question for the session. This has to do with getting the entire organization to participate in building a brand. See, if you're saying that brand is a business asset, then it's no longer the responsibility of one department or one team, and everyone has to participate. How do you involve all parts of the organization in creating a brand and maintaining the relevance of a brand?
In my experience, I think, a brand has a purpose. A brand stands for something. And if what it stands for is inspiring, if that is moving, if that is truly worth seeking, people will move. What I don't find, and sadly with some of my colleagues, a vision statement. I want to be a shareholder enriching company that is going to be $25 billion. It doesn't move anybody. I mean, everybody will say, sir, what a fantastic vision you got, sir, 25 billion, such a great, but they will not be inspired by it. Nobody is inspired by a number or by, we want to be the highest shareholder return on equity of 80%. I don't think people are really looking at that to kind of move them. It is a purpose. It is extremely important that you define the purpose. It's a bit like when people go out to fight a war. It is not that you are going to get 25 Paramveer Chakras and therefore you please go and fight a war. It is no. I fight for my motherland, right? There's nothing more closer than fighting for your motherland. So it's the same for a brand. There has to be a purpose that is simple, that is inspiring, that is all-encompassing, where everybody sees a role for it. It is not just the finance guy or the marketing guy or the sales guy, but everybody sees a role for it. And when that happens, then people rally around, right? Like in a crisis. I mean, in a crisis, what do I tell my people? I tell my people, first, protect yourselves, protect your families. Then we look at protecting the community. Then we look at protecting our partners. Then we look at protecting our ecosystem. And then we navigate the storm together, right? And people come together. But if I said, no, my purpose is I should be the largest company in this country in the next 8 months, they'll say, go to hell, right? You may want to be that, but I don't think that is the most important feeling that I've got. So the minute you start treating organizations and brands like people and who have got heads and hearts, you do a much better job. The minute you start putting too many matrices to it and try and measure yourself in all directions, you have a problem, because the customer, which is your employee, has lost it. He's not able to figure out what the hell you are saying.
Ajit, you have anything to add before we wind up?
Yeah, one small dimension, because to the question that this gentleman asked, one of the things is, or the lady, sorry, one of the things is that, I think good brands operate like orchestras, okay? And it's not the responsibility only of the marketing department and the advertising agency to build it. It is actually the CEO who is the conductor of the orchestra, and each of the people in the business has a role to play and a score sheet to play from. Now, when it all comes together, it is only then, with all these activities, not just what we express in a campaign, but all the activities that converge like an orchestra, that a brand actually comes to life. Particularly in service businesses that can be seen, but no less in product businesses, right? It needs to operate like an orchestra. Every person has a role to play in driving that orchestra.
And therefore, what Mr. Narayanan said about having an overall vision that can bind everyone is absolutely critical.
Through individual roles.
Yeah, through individual roles, but the vision is common. It's an umbrella vision. Everyone has that individual score sheet from which they play in this orchestra.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you
So,
very
Napina,
much.
let me just add an interesting fact that has just come to my light. A friend of mine has just sent me a message saying that apparently today is the or would have been the wedding anniversary of Henri Nestle. He married his wife Anna on 23rd May 1860 in Germany. So it's very interesting that on this day, 23rd May, we have this webinar, and of course, Mr. Henri Nestle's memory is well served, because he would have celebrated his 160th wedding anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's delightful. These things can't be planned, sir. Some things have to be left to chance. This is one of those serendipitous occasions. Thank you for that anecdote. And, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, over to you,
Napina,
sir.
actually, I want to, with your permission, we got one of our members from USA. He sent a question, Vikram.
Okay.
So I want to not address you, maybe missed out in your inbox. What is the special value add of brand in a time of crisis? And does a brand change to be a true change to be in tune with the needs of time of crisis like COVID? Vikram, I know why I asked him, because my member from USA, so I don't want him to know. He's been watching from USA. I don't want to disappoint him, sir.
Well, let me give it a shot. I think the most important attribute of a brand during a crisis is to be what it has always been. Because what do consumers look at this point in time? They want to cling on to familiar things. My home, my children, my parents, memories, right? Values, what I have lived with. So the world is being shaken like never before by this pandemic. You seek familiarity and you seek solace. And when you seek familiarity and solace, you want to have your brand behaving the same way. If your brand suddenly starts behaving funnily, then you say, look, I don't know what's wrong with this fellow. He's not resonating what I'm doing. So the singular solidarity of a brand, its predictability, its calmness and maturity, and its consistency is what will ensure that the consumer will say, look, this is at least something that I can trust. I think that's the most important. After that, if you do the other add-ons in terms of reaching out, in terms of doing activities, or genuinely behaving in a manner that is consonant with the times or with the sector in which you're operating, that much the better. But behaving calm, consistent, and solid at this point in time is probably what each brand is expected to do.
Super, sir. I think since I got 5 more minutes, I'll squeeze in, with the permission of Napina, 1 or 2 more questions. My past president, Ram Kumar, is done. Ram Kumar, you can switch on your video, and he has sent a question for you, Mr. Suresh Narayanan. He wants to know what Nestle brand stands for. He wants to know, Mr. Ram Kumar, you are online. You can unmute and you can come online. He wants to know what brand Nestle stands for.
Okay, I think it's well encompassed in our in our purpose statement, which has since been, of course, I don't think only Nestle ever said it in this language, but it has that is what has transformed in all these years. It's enhancing quality of life and enabling a healthier future. That's really what has been what brand Nestle has tried to stand for. So enhancing the quality of life. By quality of life, food is an essential part of life and of nourishing a healthier life and enabling a healthier future. So wherever we are, if you're able to enable a healthier future through our products, I think that is really the core of the Nestle organization.
Fantastic, sir. One really last question, sir, from the YouTube viewer. Can you share your secrets to maintaining the morale and now the mental health of your teams, especially when reaching out to the teams across the generations, like your organization where the large number of millennials?
Well, just two tips. I don't think there are any secrets. Every human being has it. So therefore, I'm not a guru or anybody who can give you these mantras. First part of it, which is 60% of the management, is managing yourself. I think I keep saying, if you have a positive frame of mind, if you are calm, cool, collected, if you are a bit reflective, you don't have to be as old as me, but if you are a bit reflective on what this means for society, for human beings, for our own lives, I think that is 60% of the battle won. 40% is a genuine desire to reach out to your people and to reach out to their fears. You know, the biggest fear that people have today is, will I have my job? Will I lose my job? Will they cut my salaries? Will they deny me something? Will I be thrown out without any reason? If you address some of these issues and keep them mentally, emotionally in a good place, I think people will do anything. And I just want to close with an anecdote. You know, I got to know this a couple of days back. One of my distributor salesmen, not even my own salesman, but a distributor salesman, he walked for 14 kilometers every day for 3 days to get permission from the local authorities to start to distribute our products. You think bonuses and money can buy that? It can't. It is culture and values. So I think that's why I said, if you have not nourished culture and values when the times are good, when the times are bad, by you suddenly becoming a nice man, it doesn't help. So I think these are eternal principles. Our families have grown that way. Universities, institutions have been that way. If we nourish them and nurture them well, I think we have the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. We got great feedback to over 1,200 participants in our YouTube, Facebook, and webinar, and also our thing. And one of the persons sent a message which I want to read it out to you. Mr. Suresh Narayan was a fabulous, interesting to hear the Nestle story. Milo examples born out of crisis are super points, among others. Retaining people during Maggie crisis time, it's a great story. Helping MSME in difficult times is so relevant now. Too many good takeaways for me. Good, I attend this event. Integrity building, trust and compassion with core suppliers to the farmers, the customers, compliances, looking at crisis as opportunity, being differentiated from the competitors, managing oneself before managing others. I think one of my members said the SMS summed up what all you said so fabulously, sir. Thank you so much. And you set the tone for the future series to come. And they also sent Ramesh Jude. You've been fabulous, and they're so much of interesting thing which you brought out. I think great insight. I think most of them have gone wiser today, listening to you again, and they are going to listen to you, continue to be there in the next few months. Apina, as usual, thanks so much for so kindly joining us and coordinating so effectively, which made us great success of the inaugural session. Thank you, past president, Mr. Ramkumar and Satish. I saw them, and a couple of more senior members, and all the viewers watching this program on live on YouTube, Facebook, and also a webinar, more than 1,200 members. Thanks to you. You are the people who really inspire us to continue to bring you great events to you. And Mr. Ram Venkatramani, I know he's got a board, one of the meetings, and he came and took part in the meeting, and also all the members of MMA for their great support. Thanks so much, and stay safe. And your takeaways have been fantastic this morning. Thank you, Suresh. I think we'll catch up when you visit next time to Chennai. And I request all the viewers, I say, show their appreciation by sharing thing or clap. I think we can clap, others can also clap. Thank you so much, sir. Bye bye. Good day. Take care and stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ramesh,
Ramesh.
and thank you, Napina. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Narayan.
Bye-bye.
Delightful to
Nabina.
have you with us.
Thank you, Ramesh. We'll keep in touch.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Ramkumar. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.